Welcome back to The Art of Adventure. This is episode 162 with Ron Malhotra. The Art of Adventure is the podcast that helps you travel the world, run your business, and embark on an epic quest. I'm your host, lead explorer and guide, Derek Loudermilk. You can head over to derekloudermilk.com to find the show notes for this episode and all other episodes, and also download your free guide, The 10 Ways to Make Money Online While Traveling the World. And there's an accompanying video with that as well. And I'm coming to you today, recording this from my house in Zadar, Croatia. We just moved here. You might hear it's a little echoey. It's an old stone house, 250 years old. And we're going to be here for the next 3 months. So very exciting. Teaching my son how to travel. He's 5 months now, so he's old enough to start international traveling. So if you want to travel with your family, if you want to take your business with you, if you want a portable business so you can spend the summer in Europe or wherever else you want to go, let's talk. That's what I do. I help people start businesses that they can run online while traveling the world, wherever they want to be. Spend time with their families, have more freedom, wake up when they want, whatever that means to you. Let's hop on the phone and I'll give you a free 30-minute strategy session, and we can figure out exactly the direction you need to be going to move forward on that. You just need to go to my website, the coaching page, and sign up, or you can send me an email, derek@derekloudermilk.com. Today on the podcast, Ron Malhotra. He is an Australian-based financial and success coach. He's a public speaker. He's done a lot, but what's really interesting is he's done this multi-decades long study of what is success. And this could be financial success or success in other ways that you define it. He's also the founder of Successful Male. I did an interview on his podcast just last week. You can check that one out. So it might be very interesting to listen to the two of them back to back and see how our conversations go together. Today on the episode, we're going to take a deep dive into what is success. He clears up misconceptions about success itself and about money. And we talk about behavior, spirituality, mindset, public speaking, and a whole range of other interesting topics. Very smart, well-studied guy. And for people that like me, they think very rationally and logically, this is a great episode because he lays out sometimes woo-woo things in a very clear, methodical, logical manner, which was awesome for me to experience. I even went so far as to ask him advice on a new adventure charity that I'm thinking of starting. So you can see how he answers that, a little bit how his thought process goes. So I think you're really going to enjoy this interview with Ron Malhotra. Welcome back to The Art of Adventure. I'm here today with Ron Malhotra. Welcome to the podcast, Ron.
Thanks, Derek. It's good to be here.
And Ron is joining us from Melbourne, Australia. What's it like with the weather there in Melbourne?
It's pretty warm today, but it's actually interesting, your pronunciation, because a lot of Americans call it Melbourne. So I can see that you've actually lived in Australia, and that's why you called it Melbourne. But ours tend to be silent. Yeah, Melbourne's an amazing place, but it's been a bit warm for the last week, so not really enjoying the hot weather, but can't complain. We live in a beautiful city.
Yeah, I was watching, which actually doesn't take place in Melbourne. I think it's in Adelaide. The Tour Down Under. I'm a big cycling fan, and I always love to catch up on Australia when I watch that race.
Yeah, we're a sporting nation, and Melbourne hosts the Grand Prix and the Australian Open tennis and various other events from
horse
cricket.
Races,
I know you
too.
guys. Horse racing, yeah, absolutely. I know you guys are not into cricket, but cricket's another one. So, and actually, baseball is starting to become popular
Really?
in Australia as well. Yeah, and basketball as well.
Huh, yeah, interesting. Real fond memories of Australia from, that was 2004 when I was there, but it's a great place.
Not too bad.
Let me see if I can summarize who you are. I'll introduce you, and then I'll have you tell me who you are, because I know that's a question that you like to ask. So for the listener, Ron is an entrepreneur. He's an award-winning wealth planner, a speaker, an author, a coach. He also founded the Successful Male movement, and he's probably done a lot of other things. I know he mentioned that he was a fashion designer at one point, which we'll have to talk about. So you've got a lot of things going on. And so I just listened to your interview with my friend Danny Flood, and that was episode 102 on Open World podcast. And so actually for the listener, if you go and listen to that, that's sort of part one. And I'm going to try to make this interview part two. So you can listen to them in succession or follow this one with that one if you want. And you ask, who are you, to people, get to the core of who they are. So let me ask you, who are you, Ron?
I think at the core, I'm somebody that wants to make a difference. And the way I have chosen to make that difference is through finding ways to empower human beings to live their best life. So I'm very, my core passion is to understand human potential. I've actually spent the last 16 years working in financial services, talking to people about money. And when you're speaking to people every day about money, one thing becomes very clear, that most people get it wrong. And that kind of led me to, I got interested in human psychology from there, because I made this connection that financial success is not so much about intellect as it is about psychology and your emotions and your behaviors. And so that's what got me started 10 years ago in this journey of understanding how human beings work. Why is it that vast majority of human beings struggle or stay in mediocrity? And why is it that a very small percentage of people actually live their ideal lives doing exactly what they wanted to do in a way that they're spending majority of their time doing what they want, when they want, with who they want? And so that kind of became the biggest passion. And now everything that I do, and people say, you do a lot of things, Ron. And I go, no, I actually don't do a lot of things. I only do one thing, which is to teach. Whether I coach, speak, train, or write, these are all just forms of me teaching effectively. I have a message which I've painstakingly researched for over 10 years, and I passionately believe in it. I live it. And now I talk about it because I know how that message is empowering and transformational. I guess when you ask me who are you, I'm really a teacher. I want to teach. The word teaching's got a bit of a negative connotation attached to it these days. We'd like to be, political correctness would suggest, who are you to tell me something? Well, that's a fair point. All I can do is share some insights and strategies because I see that a lot of the things that people are doing aren't working. Hey, if things aren't working, you might want to take another perspective on board. But that's really who I am.
And how did you find out who you were?
Oh, a lot of pain and experimentation. As I was saying to you, I did everything from, like most people, I followed the traditional career paths of, getting a university education and then thinking, let's try and get into the corporate world. Let's try and find a career that would pay well, job security. Never really considered that it's possible for me to be passionate about something. So I made a lot of mistakes. I tried my hand at a number of things, from music to fashion to, there's just too many. And I think it was just the fact that I just was not fulfilled. No matter what I did, no matter how much it paid, I just wasn't fulfilled. There was this massive disconnection and I could see that all of my decisions were intellectually justified, but really I hadn't taken the time to understand what I truly wanted at the core of my being, what it is that I truly wanted in life. And so really, if I have to, I'm 39 years of age, and I can honestly tell you that everything that I know today and everything that I am, it's only sort of happened in the last 10 years. I wish I had found myself before then, because in the last 10 years, the quantum leaps I have been able to take in life surpass everything that I've done for the last 30 years. And that's the amazing power of knowing exactly who you are and what you want to do in life.
Excellent. Let's talk about money. That was one of the first things you brought up. So you said a lot of people get it wrong. And I heard you say, money is energy. How should we think about money?
Yeah, so let's just examine some facts right now. Right now, according to some statistics, there's just over 14 million people that are millionaires in the world. 14,600,000 approximately, which represents 2.08% of the world population. Now, $1 million is not what it used to be, and it doesn't go very far when you consider that longevity trends suggest that the average person in the Western world is now expected to live well into their 90s. So the question is, well, if you really consider that $1 million is not a lot of money, and most people are going to live 30, 40 years after they stop working, well, that would suggest that most people are failing when it comes to money, 98% of the world population. Now, most people think that it's a consequence of not making enough money in employment or not having the right investments and things like that. But the number one predictor of financial success is your own behaviors and your own psychology. So if you understand how most people even think of wealth, well, Most people, have this negative connotation attached to the word wealth. I was speaking at an interview recently, and asked the gentleman that was interviewing me, I said, if you walked into a room, let's just say you're in a party and one of your friends introduced you to this guy who is a billionaire, and then 5 minutes later he introduces you to another guy and says, this guy's a really nice guy, he's really humble. Who are you going to want to spend time with? Who are you going to feel more comfortable spending time with? And, his response was, yeah, I'm probably more likely to want to spend time with the humble guy. But I said, well, it's interesting, isn't it, that you would just automatically make this assumption that the guy that's a billionaire is not humble. And you're more likely to feel comfortable with the guy that's humble and automatically feel uncomfortable with the guy that's a billionaire. And that actually demonstrates what you value in life. Because if you value wealth.
Because I was like, ooh, I would want to know which billionaire it was so that I could ask them lots of questions.
And that's you, though. That you don't represent the mindset of the vast majority of the population. And that's why you're doing what you're doing. You're pursuing your passion. You're into personal growth. The reason you're interviewing me is because you have a passion for these things. But the vast majority of people would be quite uncomfortable. And again, I think culturally there's a bit of a difference in how Americans think and how Australians think. Australians generally tend to be a little bit more. We have what we call the tall poppy syndrome. Tall poppy is basically, you must have heard of it. It's this whole discomfort with people that grow too much. We actually kind of, at a subconscious level, resent that level of success. And so we want to kind of bring them down back to earth. So, yeah, I think culturally a lot of people are not comfortable with wealth. And I think I learned that if wealth was not one of your predominant values in life, it's very hard to actually make it. And, if you want to know what a person's values are, the best indicator of what people value is how they spend their money and time. So if you've got somebody that spends a lot of money and time on family, then obviously family is one of their top values. If they're spending a lot of money and time on entertainment, then that's one of their top values. Very few people actually sit down and really proactively plan their wealth. Very few people set a clear intention that they're going to become wealthy. Very few people actually spend a lot of time researching how to become wealthy. So it's not in their top 3 or 4 values. It's something that they want, and everybody wants wealth, but it's not something that they really value at the core deep level. They may consciously value it, but unconsciously they don't value it. And so one of the biggest reasons why people don't become wealthy is because they don't really intentionally, they don't set an intention about becoming wealthy, and it's not something that they truly value. And then there's a lot of other things as well. A researcher in Harvard University called Dr. Banfield, and he did research, and he found that it was 50-year research, and he found that one of the biggest predictors of success was long-term orientation, meaning the ability to think long-term and making short-term decisions based on long-term consequences of that decision. He also found that vast majority of people didn't think long-term. And that would also explain why a vast majority of people struggle financially, because money does require us to have a long-term orientation. Most people are sort of living paycheck to paycheck, week to week, month to month.
So here's a question about that. I've heard the phrase, live each day as if it's your last, as a means to get people to take action, perhaps when otherwise they wouldn't. And that's very short-term thinking. You can't live each day like it's your last and then wind up with something in 50 years. How do you balance the two?
Yeah, and that's a really good question, because I have actually asked myself the same question. You do want to live in the present moment and you want to live for today. And I think it's just finding that balance, because the probabilities would suggest that vast majority of people are going to live a long time. Okay. Yes, it's possible that we may live a short life, but when you plan for the future, you don't plan based on possibilities. You plan based on probabilities. Unless you have a reason to believe that you're not going to be around for a long time, well, the reality is that there's a pretty good chance that the future is going to get here at some stage. And the question then is, are you going to be prepared for the future? Are you going to respond? Are you going to react? And so it's a balance. I certainly don't believe that you should give up living for today and live only for the future, but I think it's a balance. And one of the things I say to people is it doesn't take a lot of money to make money. It takes time to make money. And one of the key, we were talking about the fact that only 2% of people in the world become wealthy, but I can tell you 80% of people that walk through my office have the potential to be multimillionaires. So if 80% of them have the potential, but only 2% make it, what is the number one reason? Well, the number one reason is that, as I said, apart from the fact that most people never really value wealth and never set the intention to become wealthy, one of the biggest reasons is that people can't live on 80 or 90% of their income. Most people, the way they have set their financial habits, all the money that comes in goes out. And the issue with that is that if you can't live on 80% of your income today, how are you going to live on 20% of your income tomorrow? right? So you have to, something's got to give. And I think that's what future planning is about. It's not about saying that you would give up everything, but can we make a small sacrifice today to have something in the future? Because the definition of sacrifice is so misunderstood. A lot of people say, I don't want to give up living today. And I go, no, sacrifice doesn't mean that you give up. Sacrifice really means giving up something of low value to have something of high value in the future. So if you're giving up 10 or 15% of your income so that you can have 60 to 70% of your income in the future, well, you're not really giving up. What you're doing is you're just kind of balancing the present with the future.
Mm-hmm. I think definitely some long-term world travel has helped me get used to living. When I start making more income, then I'm still used to living on that inexpensive lifestyle, and it's great because then you have all kinds of money to use for the things that you want to make happen. I'm curious. You said that you spent the last 10 years learning about human psychology and success, and I see right behind you you have a huge bookshelf full of books, and I know that you're citing scientific studies a lot when you're talking, and I'm curious what your knowledge acquisition habit is like. Are you reading basic scientific literature? Are you reading books? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. I'll tell you what the catalyst was. Well, many years ago, I came across this research that said 85% of lottery winners go back to being bankrupt or being in the same financial position within the first 5 years of winning a lottery. I think that's what piqued my interest into human psychology, because I started to understand that money was not the issue here, because a lot of people think if I had more money, I'd be fine. But then why is it that so many people who come into money end up being back in the same position within the first 5 years? Well, that's what got me interested in human psychology, and I started to just very casually dabble into things like traditional psychology and neurolinguistic programming and psychocybernetics, and then it piqued my interest into theology and sociology, spirituality, philosophy, and then I started to really ask myself, is there a common denominator of success? Because we could see that as you study and you read, you start to find that there is so many different opinions and perspectives out there. But my question was, is there something that they all agree on? Are there a certain criteria and certain points that all of these different schools of study agree on? And I started to find that as I researched more and more and I got deep into this stuff, that there was a common denominator of what I call success. Now, success and money are probably, in my opinion, two of the most misunderstood subjects in the world. If you ask the average person what success is, I can absolutely tell you 9 out of 10 people cannot give you a definite answer of what success is. They'll have a wishy-washy concept of what success is. They'll probably say something like, it's being happy, or it's being healthy, or it's being wealthy. But that's not really what success is. Success is actually a whole defined concept. And for me, it was all about becoming extremely clear. It wasn't having these vague ideas, because vague ideas lead to vague outcomes. You have to become ultra specific in regards to what success is and what wealth is. And so when I did my research, I started to find that there was a common denominator that applied to some of the top, most successful people on the planet, whether they were musicians, artists, business people, leaders. And I started to realize that, there was a philosophy that you could adopt, and there were certain strategies that you can adopt deliberately to create outcomes in your life. And so all the things that were common between all of those schools of studies is what became the basis of the success blueprint, which we targeted initially at the male market, but the plans are next year to launch it, globally, starting with Asia and Africa, but not make it gender specific. We only made it gender specific this year by calling it the successful male, because we just found that there was really not enough support for men out there. There was a lot of support that women were providing women in terms of networking events and other kind of support, but there was really no one that was specializing in the development of men. And all the research suggested that men are struggling and suffering. Men have been conditioned to just chase money or act macho and not express their feelings. And so we found that there was a connection there between that and substance abuse and violence and depression and anxiety and all of that sort of stuff. So I felt that there was a need right now to redefine success, for it to be holistic and target it to men at this stage, but then eventually make it non-gender specific.
Yeah, that sounds like a really amazing project, and I have some friends that put on conferences for men, and I myself write for the Good Men Project. I feel like we're just at the beginning of some discussions about what it means to be a modern man, and I'm curious, how's the Successful Male going for you?
Yeah, it's going really well. We've got members from 26 different countries that have joined us, and We produce content and we produce events. We run events, and we talk about everything from identifying your purpose to discovering who you really are, to advanced goal setting, to understanding your mindset, tapping into your creative faculties, leadership, influence, money, business, dating, attraction, styling, grooming, and basically productivity, performance, emotional intelligence, confidence management. You can basically everything that you can think of that would contribute to a person's overall success. We have brought it together in one place, and we've created a very comprehensive success blueprint. Because most people, even when we know that most people don't become successful, but the ones that do become successful, their success can be best described as one or two dimensional. So they may have a really good physique because they spend a lot of time, just on the health and nutrition, or they may have a lot of money because that's their biggest value. But very few men actually achieve holistic success in all areas where they know exactly who they are. They're living an inspired existence. They're adding value to others. They're performing at their peak level. They're healthy, fit. They have authentic relationships. They have enough people that know them, like them, and trust them. And they have financial security, and so on and so forth. So we felt that there was a need, and I think the Success Blueprint now, there is nothing like it out there in the world, and I proudly claim that it's the most comprehensive Success Blueprint program for men in the world, because no one's really bothered to take the best insights from all these different schools of study and bring them together in one place.
Excellent. And this is primarily disseminated or taught through live events?
Live events, we're always looking to add value to people, but the Blueprint is actually an online program that comes with a mentor. We do not allow people to just do the program without having the guidance and support of a properly qualified mentor. So we have mentors that are certified under our program, and effectively we provide training to the mentors to coach, speak, guide their students in a way that would cause transformation. We don't just want to motivate and inspire people. We don't want to be the guy that stands up on stage, just throwing a lot of motivational messages at people. We want to make sure that there is an internal shift that happens, and that shift is permanent and it's sustainable. So we provide people with those tools which, rather than giving them superficial, fancy fads and tactics, we actually talk about the principles. And we ensure that we're not just talking about the principles. We want to make sure that there is absorption of that material at the deepest levels, so that that's where the transformation happens.
Excellent. And I know that your stated aim is to help 1 million men or something like that?
Correct. So when I went out, I decided that I was going to have a very bold target. And when I set a target for myself that I was going to impact 1 million men, I at the time didn't think of how I was going to do it. And the reason I didn't think of the how was because I understand how the mind works, and I understand that I don't need to be reliant upon my own existing knowledge base and what's in my memory bank to work out how I'm going to do this. And surely I was, I stuck to that, and I believed that was something that was achievable. And soon enough, I came up with some ideas that we're now implementing to create what we call the ripple effect. And one of them is to recruit and train mentors who would then take this vision forward.
Okay, maybe you could give me some advice. I have an idea, and I'm not sure that I'm thinking big enough. Actually, I'm thinking quite small. The idea is to create a charity to fund people to go have adventures, and while they're having adventures, contribute to the locations where they are, and maybe they're doing something, but then they're also bringing back, they're coming back as a changed individual. They're better, they're more self-aware, all these things. How can I think bigger, or how do you think I should approach starting something like this, since I've never started a charity?
Well, it'd be interesting to know what your main purpose is to start something like this. I'm guessing that, is there an emotional driver behind your decision?
Well, I've experienced a lot of personal growth through adventure, and I think it can lead to empathy, world peace, people thinking like anything is possible. There's a lot of corollary benefits. So I think people that go on adventures would be more useful to society. But I also, I want people to have more fun and see the world and all kinds of things.
I love the idea, by the way. It is such an amazing idea, because typically when anyone talks about a charitable cause, that charitable cause typically is something where people are suffering. But yours is quite different in that it's not about fixing people, it's about giving people opportunities to experience life and develop as a consequence. And I think it's the right time to do it, because I think as we're evolving, as you can start to see that there's a bit of a shift happening in human consciousness now. But the average person now is starting to realize that life is not just about making a living, it's about making a life. And I think it's just all would come down to how you package your message. And I think, but I do believe that you could, instead of calling it a charity, it could be something on the lines of crowdfunding, for example, where literally just getting a lot of people that believe in this particular message. And so if I were you, first of all, I would make sure that my message is tight, it's articulated well, and I would be putting I'd be getting out there and sharing that message with as many people as possible. As you do that, of course, you're going to start to attract like-minded people, and you'll start to form a community and a tribe of people that believe and understand the importance of travel. But rather than calling it a charity, because I think charity can sometimes take away from the whole experience that you're trying to create for people, I think a good idea may be to just get that tribe together, and then everyone sort of pulls in with that. So you make a movement where you spearhead the movement, but the movement's not about you. The movement is about these people that all believe have experienced the benefits of travel. And what they're now doing is they're starting to all contribute to that movement by putting money up for it, a little bit of money, and then everybody benefits from it. So there may be that, much like a timeshare scheme, something on those lines where, and I'm thinking out loud here, but I'm thinking if everyone's got the opportunity to pool money and there's a membership base and everyone gets benefits from that membership base. And then people who haven't traveled, so let's just say you've got a few members that have experienced the benefits of traveling, they then start to add people in their communities that haven't traveled so that they can start to experience those benefits as well. Because it doesn't sound like a charity to me. It almost sounds like this amazing tribal movement where you're bringing like-minded people and people that haven't actually experienced it and encouraging them to be a part of this particular movement. So it's almost like a movement to me. And I think I love the fact that it's positive. It's not about fixing a problem per se. Mm-hmm. It is just leading people towards a better life. And so, unfortunately, the word charity has a negative connotation. It's all about fixing a particular problem, whereas what you're doing is moving forward towards a solution, which is, I think if you maintain that approach, I personally believe that sends out a really positive vibe. And you said that you want to make something, you want to have a fun concept, and I think that's very likely to appeal to people. And then you can have literally people travel to different destinations, take really nice images of them having fun and talking about their experiences, or you could talk about their experiences. You can interview them on that podcast, share what they've learned. They can have some really nice images on Instagram of them enjoying and meeting with the locals and enjoying the culture. And then all of a sudden you're starting to build a movement because it's engaging. You can launch a podcast, you can launch a blog around it, and it just becomes an amazing movement. But I'd start with starting a movement. I'd maybe set up a Facebook group and start to attract like-minded people that think like you. Great. Yeah, thanks for thinking out loud and brainstorming on that. I hear a lot about manifestation from both the spiritual community, but also, I see it around on Instagram and Facebook. Entrepreneurs are talking about manifesting money or manifesting success. And I know that you sort of say like success takes, dedication, it takes some planning, it takes education and some hard work and all these things. And manifestation is sort of like a instant, like, boom, success. I've called it into my realm. Can you talk about the interplay between those two ideas? Yeah, look, I absolutely believe in manifestation. So for me, a complete human being is somebody that knows how to combine left brain intelligence with heart-based spiritual intelligence, right brain intelligence, and bring it all together. There are times when you have to apply more left brain analytical reasoning type of thinking. But that's not to say that I don't do visualization and meditation myself. Every day it's my ritual to empty my mind and then bombard my senses with positive inspirational material and goals and things like that. And the reason I do that is because if you really must understand the science behind manifestation. Well, it's simply the more you visualize something and you emotionalize it, the more you impress those concepts in the subconscious part of your mind. And because the subconscious mind has no ability to make a distinction between real and imagined events, it actually perceives them to be true. And what happens is once that particular concept of what you desire is impressed into your subconscious mind, your subconscious mind then goes through your memory bank and gives you the ideas, thoughts, images, words, and creativity that you need in order to unconsciously take the action that you need to create what you want. And that's what manifestation is. Manifestation doesn't mean that something's going to fall out of the sky and land in your lap magically. That's not what manifestation is. Manifestation is that you have programmed your mind in such a way that your thoughts, feelings, and actions are now congruent to what you want. And by doing that, you're very quickly able to attract the things that you want in life. Because what happens is, if you really think about it, as I'm talking to you right now, and you're listening to the voice of, my voice, can you sense now that if I mention it, can you sense the oxygen going through your nostril and you're breathing it? Can you actually feel the air going through your nose right now?
Yeah.
You can. So what happened 5 minutes ago? That sensation was there, but what your brain did was it dialed it down. It dialed it down simply for the fact that it's not something that you were focusing on. So what happens is when we focus on something repeatedly and we engage and emotionally engage with that idea, we impress it into the subconscious mind. And what our subconscious mind then does is it dials up our awareness around concepts that were probably falling in a blind zone. And that's why I was talking about money being a value. Until we value wealth, it actually falls in a blind spot. We've got opportunities all around us, but our minds actually dial down everything that we need to know in order to become financially successful. So what happens is when you have a heightened sense of awareness around what you need to do, you will naturally start to take actions, and you naturally start to think thoughts and feel feelings that you need to think, feel, and you start to think, feel, and act in a way to go after the things naturally and manifest them faster. You actually start to make things happen.
You're talking about this would lead to neuroplasticity and actual changes in the structure of the brain?
Yes, so neuroplasticity simply refers to the fact that the brain is malleable, but what happens is sometimes we can have really hardcore programming that starts to dictate how we think, feel, and act. And to replace that, once upon a time, it was believed that programming, you were actually stuck with that programming. But neuroplasticity simply suggests that it is possible to change your programming, but it does take work. And once you've changed your programming and you've brought that programming in alignment with the things you want to achieve, things start to happen naturally and start happening a lot faster. And that's what the science of manifestation is all about. Because you see right now, the moment you make a conscious decision and you become emotionally engaged with the idea of building wealth, what will happen is you'll start to become aware of people, events, situations, ideas, and opportunities that you need in order to create wealth. If wealth is not a value, your mind's actually dialed down all the awareness. So you literally got people around you, you've got situations that you could expose yourself to, but right now they're not important to you. So they're kind of in your blind spot at this stage. And I think that's what manifestation is about. And I've manifested a lot of things in my life, some very, very quickly, some have taken time. But it's not magic. It's just an understanding of working with the laws of the universe.
You talk about the balance. People need to be spiritually balanced, left brain, right brain balanced. I know that Australia in particular is very macho culture and perhaps ignores, quote, spirituality. Could you talk about how we can approach spirituality in a non-woo-woo practical way?
I think there's a lot of research now, even in the business and entrepreneurial world, which suggests that some of the best decision makers rely on intuitive senses and gut feel to drive business decisions. Some research even suggests that CEOs that walk into depressed companies who make decisions based on their vision as opposed to the state of their balance sheet make better decisions. So I think where things like talking about intuition and imagination were considered quite woo-woo, as you said, I think now people are starting to understand that it's got pragmatic implications even in the corporate world and the business world. It's just that we have been conditioned to believe that the only way we can find solutions is through analysis and reasoning. But there are some things that there's no answer to. There are some things you just sense and you feel. And the thing about intuitive senses is it gets better the more you tap into it, but you must believe in it. One of the things I have learned, and it took me a while to actually really understand this at the deep level, was it's so important to believe at a deep level, not at a conscious level. At a very deep level, it's almost like you have to produce this sense of expectation that it's going to happen. But there's also a lot of research. I mean, there's people like, Kobe Bryant and Schultz, who is the founder of Starbucks, and they will tell you, and there's been so much research, and if you look at any of Einstein's research, there is so much research and scientific studies done around the faculties of imagination and intuition and the kind of outcomes it can produce for a human being. So I don't think it's woo-woo stuff anymore. And even talking about, yes, traditionally the Australian culture may have been a bit of a macho culture, but things are changing here as well. I think there's a global awakening happening. I think there is certainly a change in human consciousness worldwide. And social media is accelerating that because of the quick sharing of ideas. Now, there is a danger in that some people go from one extreme to another, where they were so, just completely living from the outside in. Now they live so much from the inside out. And I think there needs to be a bit of balance. And I think if you really understand that we have heart-based intelligence, and you look at any of the work that's been done by the Heart Math Institute around the intelligence that the heart has, you start to understand that that doesn't mean that you stop using your brain. Because that's one of the things I'm starting to find is so many people have just gone from, oh, you know what, it's not really about working hard. I'm just going to sit here and I'm just going to be. No. You have to, and this is what life experience and growth is about. As you start to experiment with these things, you start to realize that you almost build this advanced perception around when do I use intellect, when do I use spiritual intelligence. And it's not something that's easy to explain, but it kind of comes with experience. But as human beings, we have various different types of intelligence. I mean, your body has intelligence. I sometimes get clients that walk into my office and, I say to them, I need a bank statement. And sometimes they don't have it with them. And then I say, well, can you jump on your internet banking and produce them for me? And a lot of the times clients will say, I don't remember my password. And you know what I do, Derek? I just flip my keyboard and I give it to them because the memory is stored at their fingertips. They just type it in. And you think about the fact that when you ride a bicycle, is there any conscious thought? Or when you're driving, there is no conscious thought. There is no intellect required. It's happening now at an instinctive level. Your body has produced this intelligence. We're unconsciously driving cars now. We get from one place to another without any conscious thought. And you start to think about the fact that we have so many different types of intelligences. And it's not just about being overly reliant on one type of intelligence. We really start to achieve quantum leaps in life when we start to blend the various types of intelligences and intuitively know when to use a certain kind of intelligence. I was overly reliant on my left brain faculties because you think about it, in the world of finance, you are trained like that. You're numerically and analytically orientated. So if you don't see facts and figures and you don't have evidence, hardcore evidence, and you don't do due diligence and you can't prove it, you don't do it. But now I'm starting to realize that that's not the case. You actually don't make a lot of great decisions that way. In fact, in many times, you can't find conclusive data to make a decision. And all it does is it results in analysis paralysis. But sometimes we just have this sense of knowing. We just know sometimes what to do. There's just this imprint. We can't explain why we know, but we just know what we should do in a particular situation. And I think it's important to trust that and use that. And the more we use it, the better it becomes.
What's something that you believe or something that you know is a truth that a lot of other people disagree with you about?
I think most people disagree with me about everything until I have an opportunity to speak for about 10 minutes. I usually kind of get them to see my perspective. But I think one of the things I very strongly believe is that everybody can be highly successful, but vast majority of people won't be. And it starts with not an understanding of the outside world, it's not about technical and professional education. The most important thing we need to learn is about ourselves, who we really are. It's interesting, you can go through your whole school life and university life and work life and not actually know who you really are. Never really go deep into yourself and go, who am I? Why do I make the decisions that I make? What is my number one value? What is my number one strength? What am I really passionate about? Why am I here? What kind of difference do I want to make? Most of us describe ourselves based on our names, our gender, our occupation, our nationality, our culture, our religious orientation, or our educational background. Most of these things we didn't pick. Or even when we did pick them, we picked them unconsciously based on other people's beliefs that we inherited from childhood. So the main question is, who are you? Who is Derek in his heart? And that's the real key. And if you find out who you are, then what happens is decision-making becomes easy in life. Because when you know who you are, well, you kind of know what situations are ideal for you and what situations to avoid. You know what people are ideal for you, which people to avoid. But in the absence of not knowing exactly who you are, what's driving your decisions is external influences, what the media says, what your friends and family say. And so the problem is you'll end up in a place where you don't want to be because you never took the time to understand who you are. And so that it just creates this amazing energy and amazing power and congruency in you when you know who you are, because you just kind of know, you just know how to make decisions. And there's no analysis required. I just make decisions on instinct now because, and that's the paradox, that's the dichotomy of the situation. For you to act on instinct, you have to go through all of this education first, because instincts aren't always reliable. But at some point, instincts become reliable once you've already gone through the hard work and you've analyzed a number of things. And that's the kind of irony of the whole situation, is that for me to now act on my instinct, I had to first be over-reliant on my analysis. I don't know if that makes sense, but...
Sure.
So yeah, I think it's for me, the number one most important thing is that anyone can be successful, but it has to start with self-discovery, self-education, and self-improvement.
Yeah, I love that. Ron, I know you do a lot of speaking, and in the process of speaking more, getting better at it. And I'm giving a talk to a bunch of really successful people here in a couple of days. And I pitched them a couple ideas, like maybe I could talk about the business stuff I've learned, or maybe I could, talk about what I see entrepreneurs moving towards, like the near future of digital nomads. And they said, oh, just come tell us adventure stories. And I was kind of surprised. Maybe I could get your thoughts on how I can best make adventure stories useful to highly successful millionaires that I'm speaking to.
I'm actually, wow, that's interesting that they want to hear adventure stories, but it doesn't surprise me. I mean, human beings, we just love stories, right? And it's something that I have to learn as well. I tend to be very factual sometimes, and I think I need to incorporate more stories in what I do. And we all have such great stories. And I mean, if you're a person that's driven by adventure, you're going to have such amazing stories. When it comes to speaking, I'm not strategic anymore, but once upon a time I learned that there was a number of things that you could do to create a really strong impact with your speech. First of all, I'm not in my own head. I always get out of my own head, and rather than being conscious of how I look and how I sound, I really start to find myself with the audience. And I like to anytime I speak, I get there a bit early. I have a few drinks with people. I shake hands. So when I'm actually get up on stage, I feel like I'm talking to a bunch of friends. So I find that really helps because, I've gotten to know them. They've gotten to know me a little bit. And the second thing that I do is I never start off by saying, hi, it's nice to be here. Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you all. You look great. I don't say any of those things because everyone's kind of expecting you to say those things. I actually usually start with a very powerful and impactful statement that typically kind of slightly disturbs people.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I tend to be a bit of a contrarian there from that perspective, where I feel that, it's becoming harder and harder to get people's attention and to keep them engaged. And you want to start off powerfully. And so I call it a power opening, so you got to find something that's really, really powerful that will get them hooked from the time that you start speaking. And then I'm a big believer in power pauses. Like in terms of the fact, my pauses are not 2 or 3 seconds. Sometimes I'll painfully extend them out to 8 or 10 seconds.
Wow.
And repeat myself 2 or 3 times so that there is an opportunity for them to digest what I've said. A power pause is an extremely powerful tool, not used enough by people, but just the ability to stand there and look at people and not be in your own head, it creates an amazing impact.
Thank you.
But typically I try not to be too strategic, because I have actually walked up on stages internationally and 10 minutes prior to speaking, I've changed my whole presentation. My gut feel told me that the kind of audience that was there and the kind of environment that I was in, that the presentation I had prepared probably wouldn't gel. And so I've literally then trusted my intuitive senses and gone, I'm just going to change it. And it's not a case of winging it, because I don't recommend that people wing it. But I know my content. I've been practicing. I've been living it for years. I've been talking about it for years. So if I have this sense that kind of presentation is not the best presentation, I will make amendments to it, to the point where I've taken a whole PowerPoint presentation and decided completely not to use it. Mm-hmm. Because it's kind of like a conversation, but you still got to make sure that you give them value. And so it's but it comes with experience. But I think if I had to just give you a couple of tips, I'd say start with a power opening and use those power pauses.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. I definitely noticed, even when you were talking about it, you left some pauses, and I could tell, I could feel the sort of like anticipation for what you were going to say next.
Correct. That was all part of the plan.
What's something that you're really curious about these days?
I'm curious about how some people get 1 million followers when their content sucks. I find it annoying sometimes. I go, what are these people spinning? And, you know what I'm talking about? In the world of social media, sometimes you just get somebody that really lacks substance, and yet they seem to have more people buying into their message. And it intrigues me why a cat video would get 45 million views, and something that can change people's lives will get like 2,000 views. It baffles me.
I think it's because you want it to be different, but I think why cat videos are such candy for people.
I know, but you kind of think, we surely we're more evolved than that. We've been around 200,000 years. Are we still as basic to, cat videos? I heard that cat videos get the most hits, and then after that it's videos of people fighting, and then the third one is people screaming. And I'm kind of going, are we really still that raw when it comes to, are we still so driven by instinct still that we cannot discern what is useful information and what isn't? And are we still so driven by short-term entertainment as opposed to long-term education?
What if
So
there's a way
yeah.
to combine education with cats and yelling and fighting? That's the golden golden intersection.
You'd have to be very careful you don't come across as too try hard. And I think it depends on your personality. I don't think I'll be able to pull it off, Derek, but thanks for the suggestion.
That's one thing that speaking of yelling, I don't yell very much. And I actually have a hard time dialing my emotions up to a 10. I'm pretty comfortable in the 2 to 8 range, but going down to a 1 or a 10, I don't really go very much. Is that something that you're able to do? Can you really bring the energy when you need to?
Really interesting point of discussion, actually. I had my niece recently saw some pictures of mine where I spoke at an event recently, and she said, "I love the pictures because you look super confident." And she said, "How do you do it?" And I said, "The confidence. I mean, because the way she picked up on my confidence was through the expressions of my body. You know, when you're in full expression, you obviously come across as confident. But it's not something that you do strategically. I mean, if you have no fear on your mind, your body goes into natural expression, right? Because you have no fear. And I think a lot of the times we dilute our energy and we suppress our full expression because at some level, we're doubting ourselves. So rather than me engaging in body language techniques so that I can come across as more confident, I work on my mind and my emotional state, where I know the value of what I do, where I understand that the transformation it can cause. So it takes away any doubt and fear. And so when you're not not operating from that fear, your body goes into full expression. I'm a soft speaker. I'm not generally somebody that projects out too loud. But it's funny that when I'm on stage and I'm so extremely passionate about what I have to say, everything changes. Body, tone of voice, just everything just changes. My expressions, to the point that sometimes I will yell, and it's not me to do that.
Yeah, cool.
So I think the way is really to work on the emotional state, and I think it's impossible for the body to not be at ease and in full expression when we are fully aware of our value and we're not entertaining any fear. It's the self-doubt that gets us to retreat with our body language and our tone of voice as well.
Excellent. Ron, I'd love to talk further, but we're at that point where I just have 2 final questions for you that I ask all of my guests. The first is, if you could change or add something to the world, what would you want the world to have?
I'd like there to be more difference makers in the world. I'd like more people to go beyond themselves. You know, I heard once that only 2% of people in the world make a difference. So that to me means that if we increase that number to 4%, the world problems will be halved. Yeah. So why not? Why is it that such few people actually think about making a difference? So that's one thing I would love to change.
Yeah, excellent.
And I'm working on it. Because the whole idea of success, what's really interesting about the successful male is that we've redefined success, so that success is not just about personal consumption. And it's about making a difference, and it's also about making a significant impact. So we'll naturally attract the type of people that are thinking bigger than themselves. And you see here, the success becomes a consequence. Like Zig Ziglar used to say, you know, if you help enough people get what they want, you can have everything that you want. But it needs to start from that. That should be the objective. How do I help enough people get what they want? And then, of course, as a consequence, you can get everything you want.
Excellent. Second question, what is your definition of adventure?
Adventure is to me, means taking the risk to go after what you want, to let your dreams feed your actions, not your fears. Let your dreams decide what you're going to do. Don't let your fears decide what you're going to do. Life is unpredictable. There's no guarantees in life. You don't know how much time we've got. We can't live from the past. We don't know how much time we've got in the future. So let your dreams decide what you should do. Unfortunately, most people let their fears decide what they should do.
Beautiful. Ron, what's the best way for people to find you online should you wish to be found?
Yes, I love social media. I love connecting with people because I love people. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can simply type my name, Ron Malhotra, Malhotra. You can connect with me on Facebook. You can join if you're a male or even a female. We welcome a lot of women are part of our group. We have a group on Facebook called We Are Successful Men. If you want to read my blogs, you can go into thesuccessfulmale.com or ronmalhotra.com. I regularly put out content around success. So if it's something that you're interested in, you may wish to subscribe.
Great. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been really fun, real pleasure.
Thanks for having me, Derek.
Okay, another great episode with Ron Malhotra. I really love it when guests have this sort of scientific, logical, fact-based information behind what they're saying. It really helps me believe what they're talking about. So this was a really great interview for me in that sense. And I also love it when I get to ask the personal questions that are on my mind, and it weaves perfectly into the conversation that we're talking about. So because we covered so much ground in that episode, I'd really be curious to hear what stood out for you, or what new thoughts triggered something, or what will stick with you out of that interview, because it was pretty broad. And it's also very similar to the Rock Thomas interview, if you guys want to go back and listen to that one. All right, and now I want to mention again, if you guys are thinking about starting a business that you can travel with, that you can have more freedom, free time with your family, however you want to structure it, we should probably talk. Here in Croatia, there's a ton of young people, and it's this newly emerging startup entrepreneur economy, and so many of these young people are really wanting to start these freedom businesses. It's not just people in America or the United Kingdom or wherever you are listening to this, but this is a global phenomenon that is, millions of people are digital nomads, location independent entrepreneurs already. It's definitely possible. So if you're wondering, if you don't know anyone in your life who's actually done it, then definitely give me a call. Send me an email, derek@derekloudermilk.com, or click the link on my coaching page on derekloudermilk.com, and we'll get you set up. A 30-minute strategy session. It's on me for being a listener of the show. Thanks so much for listening today. Now it's your turn to go out there and be adventurous.